series, let's send it to Azael and TSM's Assassin in the mid lane.
Thanks, guys. Great castle in the day. I am here with the victorious mid laner from TSM, Bjergsen. First off, congratulations on dealing C9 their first loss of the season. Huge turnaround from your earlier match against them. How does it feel to have kind of progressed this far?
Obviously, it feels good, but we still haven't progressed as far as we would have liked. We got just stomped by Echo Fox, so I'm not going to say we're in excellent form right now, but it is obvious that since week 1, we have been steadily improving, and we're going to continue to do that.
So, comparing your year 2 last year, obviously, you had a fantastic summer split, only 1 loss. And talking about your loss to Echo Fox last week, do you think that you guys can kind of get back to that form? Or, what is missing from last year?
I mean, of course, we can get back to the form we won in summer split, and even better. I think it's just when you have that long break in between the splits, you forget a lot of the basics of the game, and you have to constantly hammer them in every single day. And those are the things that we're working on. It's nothing too complex. It's just the basics of the game, doing it every single game, and optimizing practice. So, yeah, I'm really happy about this win, but there's still a lot of things we can get better at for sure.
Certainly are. There always are for all the teams. So coming into this game, a lot of people were talking about, Jensen maybe being the best mid laner in North America now, maybe having taken your crown. After this game, anything to say to that?
I think Jensen as an individual player is really good. His laning is really good. He's always really solid. I make more mistakes than Jensen, no doubt. When I watch him play, he doesn't really die very often. He's just a consistent force in his team. So I think in terms of being an individual player, he's been played better than me this split. But I'm just more focused on having a winning team. I just want my team to win, not for me to shine personally.
Well, I think you did shine today, regardless. A very well-played game and a very humble answer. Congratulations on your win, Bjergsen. And that's going to be it for us, guys. We're going to head back to the desk.
Thank you very much, Azael. Very kind words from Bjergsen, thrown over to his lane opponent in Jensen in a 2-1 defeat of our previously undefeated Cloud9 team. So nobody is defeatless now in the North American LCS, but it didn't come necessarily easy for TSM. All of the games were somewhat competitive to a degree. Let's start in Champ Select here. We were talking about on TSM side not liking Hanser on the carries. They put him back on a tank. Flip side, Impact swaps onto the Rumble. No Varus to be seen in the draft. What's going on here?
I gotta say, usually we compliment C9's draft. This is one of the few times where I didn't feel like they tied it together very well. So they banned the Maokai, hinting at maybe they want the Shen. They don't take the Shen first. TSM grabs it, so C9 grabs the Rumble to punish the Shen pick. And that's all fine, but then the second rotation of the draft phase, they ban Syndra and pick Echo blind, where usually Echo is like good into Syndra, so if you're planning on doing that, why'd you ban the Syndra? And then Echo Rumble doesn't have any inherent synergy. You're not forcing them to build a lot of armor.
Unless you land a sick flank parallel.
Right, I mean, like, there's always that situation, but generally speaking, they don't have the most synergy together, and then the whole comp has Zyra as well. It's like very magic damage out of nowhere and doesn't have a ton of setup. So overall, it didn't feel like one of the comps where usually you're like, oh my god, this makes so much sense, C9. This is one of the few times I'm like, what were they thinking?
Not the most cohesive or even directed composition coming out of Cloud9, but on the flip side, Scar, TSM makes adjustments that you wanted to see.
I mean, obviously, I'd like to see Hanser on tanks. I don't even necessarily want to see him on tanks, but I know he can perform well on them. So, but I don't want to give it all to Hanser. Like, sure, he played really, really well this game, but like, if you look at his lane opponent, Impact had a pretty bad game. Like, usually I consider Impact to be the best top laner, if not like top 2 in the entire league. And he gets solo killed because he overextends into tower as Rumble. That's like a really rookie mistake in my opinion. The fact that that was a huge swing in terms of the pressure for that lane was terrible for C9.
Right, what should be considered pressure lane for the Rumble got turned pretty much with that kill.
Right, I mean, that's the big thing is you pick the Rumble to counter the Shen. You have some weird early swapping going on, which I didn't quite see the point of coming out of C9. And then, yeah, your Rumble messes up, he dies, and you lose pressure over the Shen, and then you get into this weird 1-3-1 on both teams where they're just picking on other teams' side laners. That was pretty strange to see because you don't see mirror assassins usually.
Right, let's work through this game because we had, individuals on both teams that held large amounts of gold, right? Obviously, Jensen was going off. Contracts picked up 2 early kills on the Kazakhs. And so C9 goes to that kind of 1-3-1. TSM, similar thing. Let's work through this. Starting at 22 minutes, 5-for-1 ace for TSM. This is their first stab at taking control of the game.
Right, and this was really the first time that we saw TSM make a big jump back in the game. C1 was mostly ahead minus that mistake, but this is a great arrow from Turtle. It can hit anyone here. It's going to be big impact. Hits contracts. Jensen does a great job blowing up Sven, but then he tunnels onto Karma, who just runs him around the map, while Bjergsen on the flip side is running wild on C9's backline. Good follow-up by Hanser, flashing over the wall, getting a lot of taunts, setting his team up. And there you see the power of the tank being able to go in with a dive buddy, whereas on the flip side, Jensen has no one to help him CC people.
Exactly. I was about to say, when you see the fight split like that, you see how important it would have been for Cloud9 to have a tank there in Impact to either help peel for his backline and be a wall, or to be that dive buddy for Jensen to give him more permission to move freely through the back, because we saw him go into that backline, immediately eliminate one person. If he's given more freedom to work through the rest of the team, or Impact is in a position where he can keep more people alive, hey, that might work out for him. This is 27 minutes into the game. C9 is going to steal this Baron here, plus a 3-for-1. So I'm not really sure what was going on for TSM or Sven Skaren here. No smite coming out from him when it was already dropped 400 health off of the Q smite from Contracts.
Yeah, it just looked like he wasn't ready for Contracts to make his move that early with the Baron health being that high. Bjergsen also turned off Baron kind of alone, got turned on and blown up right away. And this is right after we thought TSM was in control of the game, so they make a mistake, give it right back, but it's not over yet. C9 with that Baron buff have bad formation here.
And Bjergsen finds the look as soon as the edge of night goes down. Zed finds the look on the AD and the game's over. As soon as Sneaky dies here, there's no way that one DPS, or I guess they have two DPS, but like honestly, it's Jensen doing almost all the work on C9's team. Jensen can't do it alone. As soon as he can't convert a kill at the same time, I don't think they have a chance without Sneaky.
Yeah, that was an 0-6 Rumble. I mean, it's not like he had very many items necessarily even to match up against the MR that was being built on the side of TSM.
Right, and that's kind of what we were saying, where it was this really, the team comp doesn't work together that well, where like teams are now happy to build MR, when normally you want the Echo to be able to blow people up and not need to worry about the MR too much. Shen could stack it all he wanted. Sometimes with the Rumble, you're like, okay, let's get a bunch of physical damage so Rumble can shred people. Both, like, it just didn't have that synergy that you usually see between those two champions.
And on top of that, whenever you see Rumble comps, you always see Rumble with something that keeps people stuck in place. So a good example is very, very old school. You'd run Rumble Jarvan. Jarvan ulti, and then you'd Rumble on top of the Jarvan ulti, boom, that's your combo,
We
that's
saw
your
that
synergy.
last night. FlyQuest played.
Oh, yeah,
Rumble
that's right.
Jarvan,
OG
We saw it
season
last
3
night. Now, it
comp,
didn't work for them, but you saw in multiple fights how it could work.
Yeah, right, and that's usually the idea behind Rumble. You have someone that keeps them stationary so your Rumble ult does damage. In this time, Cena had the option to draft Varus, but instead went for Jhin, a much harder champion to work with Rumble. Like the way I see Varus is Varus throws it, Rumble throws it, oh, you only have to try, you know? You just throw it in the middle, if you hit people, you can start the fight that way. But with Jhin, it's really, really dangerous how they started. In a lot of situations, you see Impact's ult go down, and you're just like, it wasn't that good, but I can't even blame him that much.
Right, I mean, it's at the start of team fights. He was often the one like, all right, throw it out, the fight started, and then he just runs at them with Flame Spitter and has to Zanyas. It's hard to have a big impact. Well, sorry.
That's okay. I was
when-
going to let it go. You don't want to stop yourself.
As I said it, I was like, oh, God, am I a freak or something? Let's go. But I don't think like it was Impact both played bad and he was not set up to have a good Rumble game.
Yeah, very much so. There was some peculiar things from C9 in this draft, but again, it might be to a degree them trying new things. As we talked earlier in the day with some teams kind of stretching their draft, hey, well, the meta's changing. You've got to learn somehow what will and won't work on the LCS stage.
It seems like maybe they're trying out new stuff, but this is like a series where I think the teams care if they win, you know? Usually it'll be against lower rated teams or teams that don't matter so much near the rankings, but this is a team where it's like they have pride on the line.
Well, and they just gave up the tiebreaker against probably your biggest competition.
Right, that's important. The head-to-head goes to 1-1.
Right, so even though you know C9's still up a game in terms of overall record, if TSM manages to bring this back in the second half of the season, now they're tied up potentially.
Right, yeah, so then it's all about buys come the late season. We'll get to that when we get to that. Player of the game this time around is going to be Hanser. Moving on to those tanks, honorable mention at the very least to Bjergsen. The two of them, especially in that final replay that we saw, that submarine, right? Getting permission to go in and having that tank to help you out as an assassin.
In both the wins today, the solo laners on TSM did a great job. Like, it just seems they support each other really well, or they were able to find ways to bring their team back into the game. Because C9 had a huge early game lead that game, and they were just kind of ground out 1-3-1 style because Impact died and wasn't able to put any pressure.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about how we saw with the Orianna Maokai synergy, this time with Zed Shen. So that they have different comps, obviously, that they're very on the same page with.
Now, what's your guys' opinion on where Bjergsen's at as an individual this season? Because he himself just spoke to it, where he thinks that Jensen as an individual is playing better than him, but that Bjergsen this season has put more of his focus on playing for his team and getting them the victories. But we do know that he's been the focus of some criticism for last week, some missed Orianna ults, and maybe not matching what people expect out of him as an individual.
I think a lot of people ask me about to rate mid laners. I'm a mid laner myself. They're like, what do you think about Jensen? What do you think about Bjergsen? Personally, I think Bjergsen is a much more full package player, whereas Jensen is very much like lane focused, very mechanical, great player in team fights. However, he's the type of person who doesn't necessarily give too much to his team. So one of the biggest criticisms I have of Jensen is that usually all the pressure has to go to Jensen's lane, and then he puts the pressure elsewhere when he gets the lead. But in terms of him personally roaming, he doesn't do a great job of that. However, he lanes so well, he always causes pressure mid. So it's just stylistically how he plays is he plays the lane. However, Bjergsen, seen in his games with Jace, even the game that he lost, he was roaming top lane, roaming bot lane, working with his team. And I think that that's why I consider Bjergsen to be more like a full package player, whereas Jensen maybe more like I don't even want to say one-dimensional, like maybe like smaller.
He's more like
It's more narrow.
fine-tuned.
Yeah,
like,
very, very fine-tuned, but he's very, very strong at his strengths.
Yeah, but either way, watching them 1v1, anytime C9 and TSM come up against each other, it's always very exciting to put focus on that mid lane. Let's go ahead and throw up our standing to see where the teams place at the end of the day. TSM's win against the Juggernaut at the top keeps them in second place, while Cloud9 continue to hold on to first in the face of that loss. CLG joins Immortals and Echo Fox in fifth, and despite picking up their second win, Envy will remain in 10th place. Now, there's still more league action coming your way tomorrow, so we begin our day with a battle for second place between FlyQuest and TSM. Then Meteos and Phoenix One face off against his former teammates on Cloud9. Over on NA LCS 2, Immortals take on Echo Fox in the Battle Theater, with Team Liquid versus Counterlogic Gaming later on in that day. NA LCS 1 games are loaded there, with the battle for second place followed by C9 versus Meteos. That's going to be a lot of fun. What games are you guys looking at?
I think TSM FlyQuest is a pretty obvious one to say, but especially after TSM wins today, everyone was expecting them to have a really difficult this week. This week they're playing the top two teams, but now they have a really good chance to actually get a huge leg up on the other teams that seem to be vying for those two buys coming towards the end of the season.
And the thing is, it's like, I also want to really point out that series because FlyQuest plays a very different style than C9. So it's like, maybe TSM can beat C9, but FlyQuest has a different, like, they throw a curveball at you, so to speak.
Right, well, you also have to consider the fact that FlyQuest is coming off of a 2-0 defeat, TSM coming off taking down the #1 team in the league. How are these teams going to deal with the loss, the victory, and moving into day 2? And what will they have learned from Champion Select on Friday? That's going to be my biggest thing from FlyQuest is, will they adjust away from that Rumble Jarvan, the Jarvan into the Zed, both matchups? Will Hai go back to the Corki? Do you have any thoughts on whether or not he should move back to kind of that safer, more consistent pick, or continue to push the limits?
I wouldn't mind seeing them go back to a little bit safer. I think we saw that, obviously Bjergsen plays Zed. We saw how effective just blind picking Zed versus FlyQuest seemed to be. It didn't seem like the Jarvan pick was really working out. Maybe they figured it out in their off day that they had. That's unlikely because it's hard to find scrims or something like that. So I think that they would be really hesitant to run the Jarvan comp again. But then again, FlyQuest is generally fearless and will do whatever they think's best. So maybe we do see it.
All right, well, gentlemen, it's been a fantastic day of games. Thank you for joining me on the desk. For myself, the casters, the entire live broadcast crew, thank you for watching at home, and we'll see you tomorrow for more North American LCS. Good night.